Welcome aboard the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where our mission is to help professional pilots build and protect wealth on their journey to financial freedom. This podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning.
All right, well, welcome to the Pilot Money Guys, and today we have a special guest. We're going to jump right in, and we have Professor Dr. Volodymyr Bilotkach. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Professor, did I get it?
It's much, yeah, but yes.
I actually used AI to try to help me. I was like, I got to make sure I get that right.
AI is better with concepts than facts, that as I tell my students.
It has limitations, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. Right now, you're joining us from Dubai, and you just landed. So thank you so much for being generous with your time. I know you're tired. Hopefully, you had some good drugs on the plane, so you sleep through it, right?
No, I don't actually take anything for sleeping on the flight. Maybe I should kind of consider doing that, but no.
Yep, that's right. And but no, thank you for joining us again. And I'll, your experience is awesome. You're from the Ukraine, right? And
that is correct. Yes, I am from Ukraine. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Got your education there. You came to the United States. You got a PhD in economics at the University of Arizona.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
A long time ago. Yeah.
That's been a while.
Actually, my older son now lives in Tucson, so I get to visit campus from time to time.
Yeah. So how did you make it from Ukraine all the way to Tucson, Arizona? How did that work out?
Well, I applied and they accepted me with teaching assistantship. So that.
Nice.
And I thought, seems like a good idea.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. You've been at several different universities all over the world, really, in the UK. You were a professor, associate professor, lecturer there at the Newcastle Business School, I think is what I saw in there.
It's Newcastle University Business School. Yeah. That's,
okay. Excellent.
Just across the road from a football stadium there.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I think you mentioned you were at the associate professor, Singapore Institute of Technology, and then and now you're at Purdue University, right?
That is correct. Yes. It's my fourth year there.
Excellent. Awesome. Associate professor at Purdue University in the, the aviation economics policy or?
Well, it's a School of Aviation and Transportation Technology, and I mostly teach in the aviation management program.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, very cool. Are you living in the northern Indiana area there as well?
I live just north of Indianapolis, actually. So I commute. It's about an hour, 10 hour, 15 minutes, depending on traffic on 465. So that's
excellent. Nice. I know Purdue's a great school, and I'm from the Louisville, Kentucky area, and a lot of my friends ended up at Purdue University, just in the north area. So
I made it down there a couple of times. It's quite pretty there.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to talking about the airline and aviation economics. As you and I talked before, most of our audience is from airlines, sometimes fractional corporate carriers, and even some aviation airline spouses might listen in just to try to understand the world that their spouses are living in, because it's as an airline pilot, you go away and you come back and it's as if you didn't do anything or nothing happened, and it's kind of an invisible career, so to speak. So.
If if the flight is uneventful, that it's kind of invisible. But...
Absolutely. Yeah, you hope it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. But, I'm just fascinated at your experience, and you started out in economics. How did you make your way into the world of the airline economic niche, if you will?
Actually, when I started my doctorate studies, so I went from Ukraine to Arizona, but my wife and our daughter, who was just recently born at the time, they stayed in Ukraine. And so for the first several years, I had to look for the cheapest tickets possible to travel between either Tucson or Phoenix and Kyiv. Yeah. And that kind of got me interested in the business of aviation. Then I learned about the airline partnerships you could not travel between Tucson and Kyiv on a single airline. You had to change carriers. And so that's how I learned about code sharing, airline alliances. And then I thought, maybe I can turn this into a dissertation. I started looking around, and actually it turned out that that topic was under researched. So I ended up writing my dissertation on competition in on the transatlantic airline markets. And then when time came to actually look for a job, I decided to stay in academia. And UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine, they were looking for an economist with specialization in transportation economics. So they hired me. And so I stayed there for 6 years. And then after that, still continuing doing my research in the aviation economics. Then we moved to the UK, to Newcastle upon Tyne, quite an interesting city in northeast England.
Yeah.
And while I continued teaching in economics academia, my research kind of kept developing in the aviation sphere. I got involved in a couple of sort of reasonably high-profile projects. For instance, back about a dozen years ago, I ended up advising the European Commission and the US Department of Transportation on the airline alliances on the transatlantic market. So, that's basically a topic of my dissertation. Then later on, I got involved with IATA as an external instructor. And so when the offer came from Singapore to teach at the air transport management program, which just opened, they were just opening there, basically. Yeah. I decided to give it a go. And so that's how I kind of moved from economics to a sort of aviation management. Exactly. And later on, so I stayed in Singapore for 3 years, mostly during the pandemic, actually. So kind of lived through that. I watched the Changi airport handling only 5% of the 2019 passenger volume in, I think it was March, April 2020. That was kind of really the draw. Yeah. Then when we were seeing our older son off to college actually he ended up going to the University of Arizona. So we could not even enter the terminal when we were seeing him off. Yeah, that was quite interesting. And as an added bonus, we ended up the longest flight I ever took was from San Francisco to Singapore. That's about 16 and a half hours. That was during the pandemic. So each of us got all 3 seats in the economy.
Wow.
And so then I took that offer from Purdue. And so here I am, just recently tenured and sort of continuing with my career and actually continuing getting involved in executive education and kind of advisory projects as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I know your book, your second edition, I think you said you wrote while you were in Singapore during COVID, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yes. Actually, the publisher contacted me and said, okay, well, how about the second edition, given that what's going on? So I did that. And then actually this year, the third edition came out. Yeah. I think it came out in North America like in August. In Europe, it's since the publisher is based in the UK. So it came out, the third edition came out in Europe sometime in June and in North America in August. But that was kind of my idea. I contacted publisher and said, okay, well, look, now the industry is recovering, but then we have the sustainability agenda. And then on top of that, I can add more material on, for instance, aircraft leasing, which I kind of ended up teaching at Purdue and have learned a lot about that industry, etc. Wow. So that's where we are. Third edition just came out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I must have just missed the third edition. I mean, this is your second edition and I ordered it. But I didn't see the third.
I only got my copies last week, actually.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations on that and the tenure at Purdue University.
Actually, as a matter of fact, let me grab that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did take a couple of copies with me to the mic.
Oh, good. Yeah, very nice. Oh, excellent. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Okay.
So you got to turn it upside down, I think. There we go. Turn it around.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. We got it.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, the economics. Okay, excellent. And I think I was reading a little bit on there about just some stuff that you added in there, but what were the big changes, if you can remember those off the top of your head, as far as just the third edition? Like you said, the aviation world was recovering from COVID at the time, but any highlights?
The key message is that we seem to be recovering to where we were before the pandemic. So we are back on the growth trajectory, which means that the same kind of old problems are there. So the airspace, airports will become increasingly congested. Then the liberalization of international routes in some areas lags the growth in demand. So we have to find ways to keep up with that. And actually, the project that I'm involved with for General Civil Aviation Authority of the United Arab Emirates, kind of that we are trying to look at this aspect, as a matter of fact. And then we now have the sustainability agenda, right? Net zero 2050, which is mostly about sustainable aviation fuels.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I don't think that we are going to, I am skeptical that we will meet the long-term ambition of, as far as I remember, it's satisfying 2/3 of fuel demand, industry fuel demand with sustainable aviation fuels by 2050. I think that if we get to 20%, then that will be a success. If it's a third, then wonderful. But
2050, is that what you said? 2050?
Yes, 2050, yes.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we'll have the ambition is to have electric, hybrid, and even hydrogen aircraft commercially available by that time.
Wow.
I know that there are several things that are kind of in development, but nothing has been certified yet.
Sure.
About was it about 3 weeks ago? I think I attended this global aerospace forum in DC, which was hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and there were several presentations of those electric aircraft concepts, but all of them are at least 5 years away from certification. So but nevertheless, we have this agenda. And another question is, how do we fund that without bankrupting the industry? Since low profitability remains the challenge and will remain the challenge for airlines. Then I have a new chapter on aircraft leasing, a bit more material on air cargo. And these are sort of the aspects of the aviation industry that I have learned more about recently.
Wow. Oh, that's fascinating. And so, the electric thing, and like, I think you said that it would be a major success if we got to 20%. I think you said alternative fuels by 2050.
Yes,
is that
sustainable aviation fuels, yes.
Yeah. And so then where does that put, in your opinion, the viability of electric airplanes? It seems like, is that farther away, or is that something easier, you think?
I think that smaller electric aircraft, we will get them definitely by 2050, maybe even sooner.
Yeah.
So I can expect some certifications by the end of this decade, as a matter of fact. That is mostly we're going to have to start small, really.
Yeah.
I would say those commuter airlines, they would probably be the first to replace the current aircraft with electric airplanes. But it's going to be shorter haul. Well, maybe we can scale it up to, let's say, regional jet level, but okay, we'll see. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so whatever I'll say about this will be very speculative.
Yeah, I understand that. Wow, yeah, that's fascinating to think about that, and I can't even imagine the battery power required to make that happen. But
it's all about energy density, as I am repeatedly hearing.
Yeah, that's above my head for sure. But well, that's fascinating. And on that note, like, are there any big, as you study and as you travel around, what are the big trends that you see? Maybe that's one of them, the fuels, the electric. But any big trends you see in the U.S. domestic or global airlines as far as making it, a better system? Anything that you're noticing out there?
Well, I'm noticing that different markets tend to behave differently.
Yeah.
So for instance, in the United States, if you think about kind of which airlines are more profitable, that's network carriers, right? So Delta, American, United, they are sort of more profitable than others. Southwest is kind of reinventing itself, and I'm really fascinated to look to see what they are planning to do, what they will do, whether they will start the longer haul operations. So they have some transatlantic ambitions, at least on paper.
Sure.
But Alaska Airlines, they are starting transatlantic flights, right? So they are trying to turn Seattle into their little hub. So following the acquisition of Hawaiian, Airlines, or rather the merger with Hawaiian. Brands are still there, but
Yeah.
now Hawaiian brings the expertise in long-haul flying, expertise in wide-body operations, right, which is something that Alaska has never had before.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I have not looked at which aircraft Alaska will be using, whether they'll be repainting some of the Hawaiian aircraft or they'll be just acquiring new Dreamliners, but definitely sort of the expertise, the know-how, some of that comes from Hawaiian side.
Yeah.
And they are going to turn Seattle into their hub, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they announced, I think, I don't remember exactly, I think it was Rome, probably London, yeah, because everybody wants to fly to London, right?
Yeah.
And so that will be a reality. So and I would say this is kind of the really the biggest kind of fundamental change in the market since JetBlue started flying transatlantic.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what's
yeah. And that fundamental change you're saying is these smaller airlines like Alaska and Southwest maybe adding the transatlantic. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call Southwest small airline by sort of any measure, but indeed it's kind of an expansion of their business model, really.
Yeah.
Because these markets, these long-haul transatlantic routes, they are quite lucrative, actually.
Yeah. So that's where the profitability is, and outside of the U.S. when you're going the transatlantic.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Trans-Pacific to some extent as well, but transatlantic, I think more so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. You know, it's interesting. I just saw a day or two ago, Southwest announced flights into Alaska. I don't know if that much at all, but yeah.
Yes. I mean, this is something that you can do with a 737, right? You just have to start from the right place in the United States. But then if you want to do transatlantic, then okay, maybe Max probably should be able to do East Coast to Ireland, maybe to London. But if you want to go to the continent, you need bigger planes, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that Alaska has that advantage with, like you said, Hawaiian and that know-how and the knowledge and the equipment. Southwest is going to have to, I don't know how far you can take a 737. I guess you can do it pretty far. They do it from the East Coast to the West Coast, so you could probably go to, I'm not sure.
Yeah, as I said, East Coast to London, East Coast to Ireland. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know all the pilots that are hoping for Dreamliners, but I think that's still in the rumor phase, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, A321 can also do East Coast to Europe.
Yeah,
as JetBlue does that. European carriers do that. Actually, Aer Lingus now flies to Indianapolis from Dublin using A321. They started that in May, and they are adding another weekly frequency. I think it's going to be from 4 to 5.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I didn't know they were doing that out of Indianapolis. That's very cool.
But yeah, well, Indianapolis had a transatlantic flight before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Delta flew to Paris, but that did not return.
Yeah.
And so now we have basically the first transatlantic flight that we got in like 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like the US and airline carriers there's a demand, there's some profitability there happening now, it sounds like, and they're just having to keep up with the demand, enough pilots, enough airplanes. The air traffic control system seems to be a little bit out of date, to say it, to put it mildly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with the air traffic control, that is quite an issue that people don't seem to talk about that nearly enough. But the very fact that now the air traffic controllers have to be affected by the government shutdown, right? That's I don't think this should be really happening, because the business can pay for this service, really.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's not considered to be like a service. It's really kind of part of the aviation infrastructure that government is financing. Whereas, for instance, in Canada, back in the 1990s, they have set up NAV Canada as the air navigation service provider, which operates as a commercial entity.
Yeah.
Which is currently actually at least partially, if not mostly, owned by the private sector.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's what they have done, and it seems to be working quite well for them. And as a matter of fact, during the first Trump administration, that idea was indeed kind of advanced a little bit.
Yeah.
But then COVID happened, and
Oh, wow.
it doesn't seem like there is appetite for this kind of project currently.
Yeah.
Even though I would say that, again, I would actually like to know the pilot's opinion on
Yeah.
this topic. Would
Yeah.
you prefer the FAA to remain kind of part of the government, or would you rather that your airline deal with like a business, really,
Right.
the air navigation service provider? Of course, it's going to be a monopoly, so some kind of economic regulation will be needed. But
Yeah.
again, this is something that kind of economists like
Yeah.
myself can help with.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I know it's a constant source of frustration, flying around and dealing with an air traffic control system that is antiquated technology. And I remember the technology on the airplane that we had, we really couldn't use it most of the time because of the difficulties. And I don't fully understand all of it either, but I know in the Northeast, you get up in that area, the congestion, throw weather in the mix, and it just becomes amazingly complicated. But yeah, I'm sure.
Yes,
Obviously,
and
Canada
on
too.
top of that, we are a couple of thousand air traffic controllers short, right?
Oh,
That's also the issue.
yeah. Wow.
And there are some kind of some ideas for to try to speed this up,
Yeah.
to train more controllers faster without compromising safety. So
Hmm.
the current Department of Transportation, current administration, they are actually working towards that. We have to give them the
Yeah.
credit for where it's due, really.
Yeah.
Uh, but then, and there is also this kind of program to modernize the air navigation system, which I have read different opinions whether to what extent it is likely going to be successful. Because
Hmm.
essentially, they're trying to do too much too quickly. But
Sure.
this issue is recognized, and something is being done.
Wow. That's fascinating. I'm
But
thinking.
obviously, it's not something that you can do quickly,
Yeah,
something that you can turn
absolutely.
around quickly.
Yeah. And in your book, you talked about it. I thought you mentioned in your book, and I may have misread that Europe was also privatized, or maybe you were speaking of Canada. Was it Europe as well?
In Europe, it's mostly about commercialization rather than privatization.
Oh,
I mean, it is true that in Europe we have NATS, the British air navigation service provider,
yeah.
which is a public-private partnership. So it's partly owned by the private sector. And enough, the Italian air navigation service provider, which is actually, they floated like 40 something percent of their shares on Milan Stock Exchange. So you can actually buy shares in that company. Otherwise, there are several air navigation service providers that are still parts of their government. Most notably, that would be French and Greek, but majority of the of ANSPs, that's
Yeah.
air navigation service providers, are commercialized, which means that the government sets up a state-owned enterprise essentially,
Yeah.
which operates as a business,
Yeah.
finances itself through the fees for providing air navigation services. Because I mean, how is FAA financed? Well, there is a hearing, right?
Yeah.
And the certain amount of money is appropriated to run the FAA, essentially, right?
Right.
From the taxes.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating.
Whereas a commercialized entity would just provide services, collect fees for provision of those services, finance itself. Then, if it needs to borrow, it can issue bonds and just go on the open market to borrow money from the market, etc.
Yeah. Wow. So I think you were saying that the U.S. The air traffic control system was actually more efficient in some of those areas, but also you mentioned the Canadians have a pretty good as far as their capacity and their system.
Yes,
Mm.
Canada appears to be kind of running a
Yeah.
nice, a good sort of air navigation system. But
Mm.
then, okay, just measuring efficiency of air
Yeah.
navigation system, that's a pretty tricky task.
Oh yeah.
That's actually one of the courses that I occasionally teach for ICAO. It deals with that kind of. It's like basically
Mhm.
5 days of explaining various ways of benchmarking, kind of
Oh
measuring
wow.
the various aspects of air navigation services.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that complexity is amazing. But as far as the whole system, air traffic control, and then you've got essentially a pilot shortage. I think would you agree there's a pilot shortage? Is that what you show in your data and research as well, and that being a trend?
I have not done work on
Yeah.
specifically on sort of on pilots, but indeed we have had we have had various issues with the supply chain and the labor shortages
Yeah.
after the pandemic, which was kind of understandable.
Right.
So the demand for air travel bounced back quite quickly, and so then a number of people left the industry. So there are restrictions in the supply chain, etc.
Yeah.
And so we did end up essentially having to go through this pilot shortage. What is happening now is, and it's not really clear to me whether we still have a shortage, really, especially now with Spirit essentially kind of halving their fleet. So we will have some pilots who will be sort of looking for a different employment. And I do hope that everybody finds gainful employment and will be able to sort of proceed with their career in the aviation. And we do have this, at least in the United States. Okay, so Spirit had about 4% market share in terms of the passengers. So they are going to half that. So okay, roughly speaking, what it would be 2-3% of pilots that will be really relocating to different airlines, and I do hope that they will be able to find the employment. Then what I'm also seeing, sort of our graduates, right? We at Purdue in the School of Aviation, we have professional flight program, and obviously it's very competitive. Our graduates tend to find jobs easily, and most of them, those who go into commercial aviation, their first job is usually with a regional carrier.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Republic Airways, which is, I would say, the second largest regional airline in the United States after SkyWest, it is headquartered in Carmel, Indiana. Yeah. And I happen to live in Carmel, Indiana as well. So their headquarters are pretty close. And they hire a lot of our pilots, student pilots. Then we have Envoy, SkyWest. They seem to be observing that at least their salaries are going up or have gone up recently. So our graduates seem to be quite happy with the offers that they're getting.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as we're talking about with our brand, we admit about less than 10% of applicants to the professional flight program. So our graduates are sought after, really. Right?
Yeah.
But overall, it seems that pilots are not doing badly. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And on the other hand, the other thing is that aviation business is pro-cyclical, so it moves a lot with the business cycle. As some of my colleagues who used to be pilots say, you're not a real pilot until you have been laid off at least once. That's obviously that's kind of based on their experience from earlier in their career. So that is also kind of a fact of life that demand fluctuates, and the pilot jobs also the demand for pilots also fluctuates. Right. For instance, in the cargo sector, demand for cargo in general is more volatile than demand for passengers. That's kind of than demand for passenger services. That's pretty established fact. So if you're working for a cargo airline, I guess you are probably going to be experiencing more of those boom bust sort of cycles than if you are in working for a passenger carrier. Especially now with the impact of all those tariffs is still it's not yet clear where this is going exactly, but we can safely expect a bit less demand for air cargo going forward, which might affect some job security for some of the pilots working for cargo carriers.
Yeah.
And then on the global stage, however, everything seems to be working well.
Yeah.
Actually, the captain that flew my flight, landed today, departed yesterday, of course, from O'Hare to Dubai, was German.
Yeah.
And that is seems to be quite normal that you see pilots from all over the world working all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is fascinating, and I like what you said about you're not a real airline pilot until you've been laid off or furloughed once, or and it's we work with a lot of pilots that at leading edge where they've worked for 4 or 5 or 6 airlines, but the younger pilots, they've been able to have a little bit more stability. It seems like even,
Mhm.
COVID was obviously a very scary time, but it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine. And I said this 2019, knock on wood. I said, it seems like the airlines are finally getting their footing and they've consolidated, they've become profitable. Of course, COVID came along, but as you noted in
Mm.
your book, the airlines have recovered. The consolidation has kind of happened. There could be more consolidation. You might want to comment on that, but it seems like,
Mhm.
are you bullish on the next, 5 to 10 years of domestic U.S. airlines as far as the health and profitability? Any opinions there from?
Well, yeah, as far as domestic US airlines go, commenting first on what's going on before COVID. So if you look at the numbers from IATA, 10 years before COVID, so 2019 and going 10 years back,
Yeah.
each of those years, the global airline industry ended up in the black. So they were profitable. And US carriers or United States was one of those kind of spots globally where profitability was higher than the average.
Yeah.
So you have US carriers and then you have low cost carriers in Europe. Actually, kind of I did sort of mention that markets kind of look different, right?
Mhm.
So what I wanted also to say, kind of got carried away into some other territory, is that in Europe, actually, unlike in the United States, it's the ultra low cost carriers that are market leaders that are more profitable.
Oh. Huh. Yeah.
Then in Southeast Asia, it's kind of like a mixed bag, really. But low cost, they have gained a much larger market share than in the United States, for example. But then here we have the, let's say, Gulf carriers, where again the network carriers are really the kings here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are low costs as well here.
Yeah.
But then coming back to the United States, yes, I am quite bullish about the industry.
Mhm.
Well, obviously, a lot depends on the macroeconomic stability in
Yeah.
general. So as I said recently, that unless the world starts another world war, then
Yeah.
the aviation will be fine. The aviation industry will be fine, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I do see those challenges from macroeconomic stability. Then from technology, there is potential for safety security challenges from UAVs, that is from drones. You probably have heard of recent cases where drones led to airports in Europe shutting down.
Wow.
There were cases in, I think, Munich airport, then airports in Poland, and somewhere else, Copenhagen as well.
Hmm.
So we are seeing these things, and now that I think it is quite scary just to think about kind of how the technology has developed, and like on the battlefield in Ukraine, I
Hmm.
read recently that up to 85% of all hits are by or from UAVs
Oh, wow.
front lines, right? And
Yeah.
now you can imagine that this technology kind of comes to the peaceful world and
Yeah.
starts disrupting air traffic. So I
Yeah.
think that could be again one challenge, but it's really the macroeconomic stability and that new technology that
Yeah.
could pose challenges.
Yeah.
And but of course, geopolitics is also important.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
So,
have seen kind of how things can change when, let's say, one or the other country closes down its airspace. Of course, the United States is far from it. But if you look at, let's say, Europe-Asia traffic, right, at some point we had Iran closing its airspace,
yeah.
right? And there are basically just a couple of corridors remaining for
Hmm.
commercial traffic to kind of to go through.
Yeah. Wow. So that's fascinating. What you said about what they're learning in Ukraine about the, remote UAV, and that stuff was big too. When I was in the military, even years ago, and it's even more impactful now, of course. And like you said, that'll bleed over into the civilian world. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, genie is out of the bottle, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, interesting. And so, a lot of our pilots, we talk in the cockpit about, hey, is single pilot operations on the horizon? Is that something realistic? But yet we're flying airplanes without anyone, essentially, right? I don't know where that will go or how realistic that is, but what are your thoughts on either single pilot or completely remote? Any thoughts there?
Well, you might know that the European Aviation Safety Agency has decided to stop their research on single pilot operations this summer, June or July. There was, you can easily Google the relevant news. And essentially, the conclusion was that, well, at this time, given the current state of technology, we cannot really say that we can move to single pilot operations without reducing safety to the level that we consider not acceptable, right? So I would say that at least for the foreseeable future, we will have two pilots in the cockpit. And how long it's going to last, well, it really depends on how fast the technology is going to develop. And I would not, at this time also, I would not say that the technology that we call artificial intelligence, even though I just say that these are large language models. They're not really intelligence at this. This not in my book. In my book, if you can feed the model kind of the same information that, let's say, Isaac Newton had, and the model would come up with the Newton's laws, right? Then that would be artificial intelligence in my book. So far, we're not there yet. And also, based on what I'm hearing, and I'm not an AI or LLM specialist, but I have talked to people who kind of know that stuff. That I attended about a year ago a conference in London organized by the Royal Aeronautical Society, where we had some people from the FAA, from regulators, from the academia. And one of the kind of consensus kind of conclusions was that you should really keep those large language models away from safety critical applications. Yeah. So, I mean, they may help the pilot, but you have to be really, really careful. So I think that for now, we are kind of safe in a sense, or the pilots are safe in a sense that I do not see single pilot operations coming on board for at least the next decade.
Yeah.
Based on sort of what I understand, but based on my understanding of what is currently happening in this area.
Yeah. And it makes sense too, because, it seems like the technology is there, but if you think about it, like you'd have to remanufacture the entire airplane cockpit. You'd have to reconstruct the entire air traffic control system to get, one pilot. And then really, how much is the savings to reduce to one pilot anyway? Your insurance costs would go up. It just seems like the economic barriers are just tremendous. Seems like and technology is probably there, but economically speaking, it's not realistic. It seems like.
Yeah, and also the public acceptance. I think there will be issues with that as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And back to the U.S. as far as our pilot audience, they're curious about the current health state, economic health of their airline in the U.S. And do you have a decent feel for? I think you said you're bullish, as far as the industry. Any trouble that you see in any of these airlines in the U.S. as far as economic, profitability, anything like that you're thinking about?
Well, I would say that I do expect a bit more consolidation on the kind of ultra low cost sector. I mean, actually, if you wanted to kind of know what the state of airlines is, I mean, you can just Google air carrier snapshot BTS. BTS stands for the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, and you can quite quickly get to like a dashboard that the BTS has created, where you can pick the airline, pick the month, and you will get sort of the basic kind of information about the airline, and including revenue per available seat mile and cost per available seat mile. And at the basic level, if the first is bigger than the second, then the airline is profitable. Otherwise, the airline is losing money. And what you can see there, I mean, I have not really looked into that too much for the last 6 months or so. But earlier this year, I sort of published a small article, not like a scientific scholarly study, but just kind of more of a popular press kind of article where I have looked at these numbers for US carriers, and I found that, or I saw rather, right, that network carriers indeed are more profitable currently than the ultra low cost carriers. The Southwest was kind of like at the break-even point at the time, and now we are seeing them reorganizing themselves. However, I do think that the carriers like Spirit, Allegiant, Frontier, there might be some consolidation in that segment in the not too distant future. Yeah. Like what's going to happen to Spirit, for example? I think they will survive, and actually the fact that they are reorganizing aggressively gives me more hope that they will be able to make it. But then I would not rule out potential sort of acquisition by another carrier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like I wrote you in, one of the notes before we met. It was just hard to imagine why the Department of Justice, DOJ, rejected I think it was JetBlue and Spirit. It's amazing because they're two smaller, seemingly, to me anyway, airlines, and they rejected that, and then down goes Spirit. It was just to me that was really, I don't understand that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, my reading of that was that the DOJ viewed the markets that Spirit was operating on as distinct from the market that JetBlue was operating on, primarily due to the differences, the fundamental difference in their pricing strategy is that Spirit obviously unbundles their product fully, right?
Yeah.
With JetBlue, whatever fare you pay, you pretty much, you can bring your regular carry-on board. With Spirit, of course, if you want that carry-on, that's extra $50 or whatever. I mean, they do vary that price a bit. And so essentially the view was, at least that's based on my reading of what DOJ wrote, was that if you take away, if Spirit merges with JetBlue, then all those passengers that, like myself, that when I traveled on Spirit, I tried to make sure that I could fit everything into backpack. Yeah. Or if, let's say, we're traveling as a family, it's just one carry-on at most, right? And everything else is in backpacks. So those passengers will end up paying more. But I do think that potentially the airlines, they tried to merge during the Democratic administration. Maybe the current administration would have waved that merger through. I mean, there is a general perception that the Republicans are a bit more lenient than Democrats to these issues. Even though, of course, I mean, if you look at all those big mergers in the first decade of this century, such as United Continental, I think that happened, was it during Obama or Bush? I don't remember exactly, but it didn't really kind of matter that much, apparently.
Yeah. You're right about that. Yeah, that's fascinating. You're right. There's got to be some changes there, but as we wrap up today, before we met, Volodymyr, I texted a few of our pilots and said, "Hey, I'm meeting with an airline economist. What do you got? What's on your mind? Just real quick." And so I got some funny responses, some good responses. A lot of them we've answered already today. Hey, what's going on with Spirit? Are they going to survive? Bearish, bullish on the U.S. airlines. Single pilot they ask about a lot. One, Chris out of American, he's an American captain. He asked about just biggest dangers to the airlines and what could they do better to improve their financial outlook. I thought that was a good one though. Just anything, as far as risks, you talked about some of the risk, which is war or geopolitical, but any other big risk. I think the airlines, they're subjected to every risk, if you will, seems like. But any things they can do, what can airlines do better to improve their financial outlook if you were king for the day?
Yeah, well, fundamentally, the issue with airlines is that a lot of their costs are fixed, right?
Yeah.
And also when in a downturn, they hit on the revenue side, and then the costs are fixed. And so in the end, you may end up losing money, right? So what they should do is probably diversify their revenue sources to try to make sure that they still get some revenue when they in the downturn. And actually, for example, the airlines partnerships with the financial institutions, that's kind of in a way kind of help them.
Is that the
Yeah.
credit cards you're talking about? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard during what was it? I don't know if it was 2008 or COVID or one of those years, but they made money. No, somebody told me this, and I think it was accurate. They said that Southwest announced they were going to Hawaii several years ago, of course,
Yeah.
and immediately they started making money on Hawaii without flying there because of the credit card points. So it's
Yeah.
amazing how powerful that partnership can be.
Yes, exactly. And they are making considerable amounts of money on that. And I do think this is probably like the biggest thing that they have done in this respect. Of course, you can think about sort of commission-based products, but there is, let's say if I book a hotel through the airline's website, the airline gets certain cut, but that's really small beer, as we say, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of this sort of leveraging their frequent flyer programs is really sort of the
Yeah.
best thing they can do. Then maybe trying to do product unbundling in a sort of in a smart way. But again, the airlines are doing a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
And on the cost side, it's kind of really hard to think of anything that they are not doing, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you can say that, okay, well, maybe more leasing than ownership, who knows, right? Then the deals that the network carriers have with the regional airlines, I think they help the network carriers as well. So but in the end, it is about sort of cost control and differentiating the revenue in such a way so that you can create revenue streams that are not as dependent on the business cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. It makes sense for sure. But I'm looking at the other questions here. It says, well, it's amazing you talk about cost, obviously being such a big part of the profitability. I know some of our pilots that we work with at Leading Edge they're on their union negotiating committees. They're already starting up negotiating contracts again. And it seems like we just got through the round. The major airlines passed these really very lucrative contracts in probably 23 and late, 23 and early 24 maybe. But they're already starting to open those negotiations again, which is fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see how those negotiations go versus the last round because seemed like they were so lucrative on the side of the pilots, which was great for the pilots. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes the next time around.
Well, I guess it depends on how the economy performs, really.
Yeah.
In the end, that's going to be the major factor here.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So, as I'm just reviewing a couple of the inputs from some of our pilots, and we've hit on most of them. Let's see here. Tyler talked about a single pilot. He was very interested in that. We talked about that. And one of my buddies from Southwest, Jim, says, "Tell me about monetary policy." I think we'll have to do another podcast on that one, Volodymyr.
Yeah, probably.
That's a bigger topic, isn't it? So anyway, but
yeah, it's all I can do is all I can say now is that it is important to preserve Federal Reserve's independence.
Yeah, there you go.
And I do think that Federal Reserve in general is doing a decent job in sort of running the monetary policy, and it is. I mean, might be a little bit self-serving because Federal Reserve is probably the biggest employer of PhDs in economics in this country, really. And as you can imagine, I know several people who work for the either regional feds or the board of governors.
Yeah.
But I do have quite a bit of confidence in them and being able to sort of do really solid data analysis to try to get a better idea of how the economy is performing, and in the end, which in the end translates into the correct decisions as to what to do with that interest rate, with that Fed interest rate.
Oh, that's good. No, that's helpful.
But it is important to keep politicians out of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Regardless of which party is in power, really.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. We interviewed someone from the Fed not too long ago on our podcast here, and it was neat because sharing your perspective of, hey, there's a lot of they employ the most economic or PhD, economists of any, I think, of any company, or it's a lot of smart
That is
people.
true. Yeah.
A lot of smart people
Yeah.
that they want to do the right thing.
And
But
yes, and they have access to data that sort of you and I don't have
yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Last thing before I let you off the hook, Volodymyr, is this. A lot of our folks are interested in, and you can just make up, your opinion or whatever it might be. But age 67 is always one that, we thought was going to go through, and it seems like it might. I know there's a lot of different thoughts, opinions from the airlines, from the unions, young pilots versus
Yeah.
older pilots.
Yeah. Well, ICAO kind of did not support it. ICAO had their general assembly in Montreal recently, just wrapped up actually, I think on last Friday. I mean, as a matter of fact, I was in Montreal on some of the days of that assembly.
Mm-hmm.
We had a workshop for universities that ICAO organized. I had some meetings on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
I even took part in a small protest that Ukrainian community in Montreal organized before the council election. So
Yeah.
urging the delegates not support Russian case, and Russia
Yeah.
did not get elected,
Mm-hmm.
and rightly so.
Yeah.
So actually on Facebook there is a picture of me with Ukrainian flag kind of against the backdrop of IKEA headquarters.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, so first of all, it's up to individual country really to decide on that. But generally speaking, just kind of mathematically, right, as the life expectancy increases, we can expand as people are having fewer children. The retirement age will eventually have to go up.
Yeah.
So this is what is going to happen. I mean, I'm in my late 40s, and I expect to work until I'm at least 70.
Yeah.
In general. So that's, even though I have 3 children, but still. But overall, as a society, we're not having enough children. Right? And I do not support what Elon Musk's kind of a bit extreme view on this matter, but it's just we have to understand kind of what the consequences are going to be. So fortunately, we are kind of, as a society, as people on average are healthier, we live longer, we are able to stay active longer, we're having fewer children, so we'll have to work longer.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. When it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, that's anyone's guess, really.
Okay. I was hoping you have an exact month and year for us, but
then I'd be on the Wall Street sort of placing bets and stuff.
That's right. That's right. The next question would be the perfect investment as well, since you have a crystal ball. Well, awesome. Volodymyr, we thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome. And again, being generous with your time. I know you're exhausted from flying over to Dubai, and you've got probably a big.
Well, I think the adrenaline rush has still not. Gone, but I expect that I won't stay awake for long after our conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, anything for our audience before we let you go? I know we've talked about a lot of different topics, and but anything that you would share otherwise that we haven't talked about already?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean. I guess all I can say is that aviation is a great industry, and I think we are in a wonderful time to be in aviation, right? Yeah. And as long as we don't have some kind of major military conflicts, the industry is going to be fine.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. I second that. And Volodymyr, thanks for your time. By the way, we support you in Ukraine, and we were pulling for you there and supporting you as well, and all your.
Thank you so much.
All your country
means a lot to me, and it means a lot to Ukrainians to see and feel this support.
Yes, absolutely. And do you still have family in Ukraine?
Yes, my parents are there, and also my mother-in-law. My wife actually spent about a month in Ukraine this last summer, helping care for her mother. So that's. I mean, in Kyiv, it's reasonably safe, but of course, you never know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. We get one side of the news, and it's hard to know exactly, what really happens over there. I can't imagine.
Yeah, in the summer my wife did have to spend several nights in the bomb shelter in Kyiv. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Well, it makes us really appreciate freedom and the price that was paid for that. And we're rooting for you all and supporting you as well. But Volodymyr, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, Pilot Podcast family. Charlie here. I just wanted to share with you something we've just recently developed. In the show notes, you're going to see the Pilot Wealth Index. We want you to check it out. Give it a shot. It's a quiz, a short questionnaire that allows you to understand, are you on track? We have a lot of people that say, hey, we just want to know if we're on track. Are we where we should be at this stage of our flying career, airline career, whatever it might be? How am I doing? Am I close to my peer group? Am I behind? Am I ahead? We've developed some questions, some metrics that we think if you go through this and check it out, answer the questions, you will have a very good idea of where you stand. We developed the questions that give an indication of, are you doing the right things you need to do to be prepared for an eventual retirement and that one that can be profitable for you. So check it out in the show notes, the Leading Edge Pilot Wealth Index. We hope you give it a shot. If you have any questions at all, reach out. Happy to help. Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. Again, that's Charlie at leadingedgeplanning.com. You can call or text me on my cell, 865-328-4969. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Pilot Money Guys podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen. We are grateful for your reviews because they encourage others to listen in. Visit leadingedgeplanning.com to learn more and subscribe to our newsletter. Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC, LEFP, is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where LEFP and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.